Hi everybody, welcome to this week's Tuesday Talk. I have a few things to talk about today. It is the fourth week. It's near the end of the month. It's the fourth week that I've been doing the High Fat Carnivore 80-20. So even though it is the 27th as of the day this is being filmed, I have been doing my measurements every Sunday to have them reported for the Tuesday. So I'm going to cover a couple of things. I'm going to give you my November results, like 4 weeks of results. I'm going to talk about the settings in Cronometer, because I know that some people are struggling with doing the settings so that you can, follow your 80-20. So I'll show you what I've done. I'm going to show you my Dr. Boz spreadsheet and some meal samples of what 80-20 looks like for me. So that's actually quite a bit to cover. So I'm, going to move through quickly, and hopefully you can just, stop the video and look at that piece again. If I do move too quickly, I'll try not to. So here's my results. Another half a pound down. Did I want more? Of course. The whopping total for November is 2 pounds. Now I did take my measurements as well, and those didn't do much with 2 pounds. I can only account for 1 inch of weight loss, half an inch off my bust and half an inch off my hips. Waist and thighs stayed the same. So that's fine. And I'm not unhappy with that, because I did up my calories by a good 20% in doing this high fat. So, I was worried that maybe there would be a weight gain. So 2 pounds is almost a wash, especially considering, the measurements haven't really done much. So I'm okay with that. And my plan is to continue on, because, yeah, there's weight loss and I want it, but as I get closer, to my goal, which, I'm still not 100% sure what that will be, but I know that I'm inching ever closer. It is going to be harder. It is going to take longer. And when I started this 80-20 thing, I suspected that I may have had some metabolic damage after years, an entire lifetime of being overweight and going on different diets and trying everything on earth. I knew there had to be some underlying damage, that just because I wasn't diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and just because I'm off, I have no medications to speak of. I'm on nothing. That doesn't mean that there was stuff brewing underneath. And I'm hoping that, these things are being healed, and it's going to take time. The things that are not measured on the scale, we call them NSVs, non-scale victories, are that from about 3 months ago, I'm down a couple of sizes. From 4 weeks ago when I started this, as you'll see on my Dr. Boz chart, which, I printed it out so I can kind of explain a couple of things, and you'll be able to see it up there. But on my Dr. Boz chart, you can see that my ketones are at least triple what they were when I first started this at the beginning of November. That has to help me in the long term. I just feel like it has to. And same with my GKI. My GKI was nowhere near the therapeutic weight loss type of ratio that's needed for weight loss. So, So let's just take a quick look, since I'm looking at it right now, on my Dr. Boz chart. I put a couple of arrows there. The first arrow is pointing to December 17th. I had 4 days of dairy there, and you can see that, I was my ketones were 1.3, 1.5, 1.3, 1.3. So then I thought, okay, I'm going to omit dairy and see what happens. And immediately the next day, all of a sudden, even though my blood glucose was slightly higher, my ketones were 1.7 and I had an excellent GKI number of 2.82. And so they stayed in the 2s for 3 days, like 2.4, 2.6. Very good ketones for me so far. Then I saw the video where Steak and Butter Gal once again interviewed Dr. Bright. I had no idea when I started watching that video that they were going to discuss a problem, a very specific problem that I have been having. And I had no idea that other people have the same problem. I thought it was just me and my stress levels, and it probably is related to that. So what happens with me is that around 2 in the morning, 2:30, I wake up, I go to the bathroom. There's no going back asleep again. Like, I cannot fall back asleep. So I toss and turn till about 3:30. Then I turn on the TV or I look at my phone and I see if I can, just read something on there to relax me. Sometimes I'm able to fall back asleep for another hour, but most of the time, no. So I've had, for a few months now, and that was, I was doing mostly carnivore, like ketovore, 2 meals a day. Now I'm doing the high fat. But I've had that kind of dilemma of, my day starts at 2:33 in the morning, and I try to go to sleep early. I try to do all the right things, and it just doesn't seem to be changing much. And they talked about that, and they talked about your cortisol levels start to rise, and they're like around 2 a.m. and they're supposed to go in kind of a gentle rise until there's enough to wake you up. And mine's, perhaps they spike. And Dr. Bright talked about how some people have that spiking cortisol. They are tired but wired. That phrase just is like, that is me. I'm tired but wired in the morning. So her solution was to have some butter in the evening. So that's what I did. That very night I thought, okay, I'm definitely trying this. I'm going to have butter in the evening. So immediately, so that was on the 24th, and immediately, or it was on the 23rd actually, and this is the results the next morning, I saw that my blood glucose rose significantly, and my ketones only dropped a smidge. And at first I thought, oh no, butter causes that. But then I realized, no, it isn't. The butter didn't cause that. It was the fact that up until this time, I had been fasting for probably 14 hours, because usually my last meal is between 4 and 5, and I test at 6 a.m. I try to test every morning at 6 a.m. And because I had the evening butter at about 9, I think, that was no longer fasting glucose of, 14 hours fasting. So to me, it made more sense that it was due to that rather than the fact that I ate butter. So I moved my butter earlier in the evening. So instead of at 9, 6 or 7. And you can see that, but that second arrow there, the next 3 days, I had my butter earlier. My blood glucose was lower, and my ketones were about the same. So, they're kind of going in at 1.5, 1.4. But they're staying in the 3s, like my GKI is staying in the 3s, and that still is therapeutic weight loss range. And I'm happy with that, because it's, again, talking about NSVs and not all about weight loss. Of course I want that, and it is happening slowly but surely. I also desperately want a good night's sleep, because if I don't get a good night's sleep, a lot of other things suffer. So last night was the first night, so this is after 4 nights of eating butter in the evening. Last night was the first night that I actually had 6 hours in a row of good sleep, and I woke up around 4 a.m. this morning, which is a heck of a lot better than between 2 and 2:30. I will take it. So I'm going to continue on with the evening butter, and I'm going to see if there's something else I can do to maybe get my ketones higher. And one of those things that is an option is doing a fat fast. And Dr. Boz, she puts a lot of her patients on a sardine fast, 3 days. And fat fast is also 3 days. So I really like sardines, but I'm kind of skeptical as if I can actually eat those for 3 days. And I don't know if I can do a fat fast for 3 days either. But because I have quite a lot of different types of fat that I went shopping for and bought, I have tallow, I have suet, I have beef fat trimmings, lots of butter. I have all the good things. Tomorrow is Monday for me. I am going to do that. I'm going to do it for 1 day. I'm just going to commit to 1 day, see, how I survive that, and see if it does have any effect. I'll take any improvement. Although I'm not unhappy with my numbers here. I'm definitely not. I can stay this course fairly easily. So, and I'm going to talk about staying the course later when I'm finished these other things. So that's my chart. And I want to go on to Cronometer. So I did also switch to Cronometer on November 1st, or just before it. I practiced for a couple of days. One of the reasons that I went to Cronometer is because Carb Manager and Fit Day, which I've both tried, my concern about those two programs is, if you go to put in something, like say you put in an egg, you get anywhere from 0, for a large egg, there are entries in there that show 0 carbs all the way up to 1 carb. I believe it's 0.6 for a large raw egg. I feel that it's like the Wild West. Anybody can put anything in there, and then unsuspecting newcomers to keto come along. Like, for instance, heavy cream is in there at 0 carbs. We all know it's not 0 carbs. It's probably half a carb per serving, which is, I think, is 2 tablespoons. If you're thinking it's 0 carbs and you're just adding it in all day long, you've added lots of carbs. You've added hidden carbs that you're not aware of. And so for that reason, I went to Cronometer because I heard that they were better at vetting these things. And so I'm hoping that is true. And I like all the other extra nutrients that it tracks as well. And I am, at first it was a bit of a learning curve, but now I'm getting used to it. So I want to show you where you set your macro targets if you're doing 80-20 to just make it a little bit easier for you. It's under settings, and then it's under profile and target. Profile and target, something like that, and then you'll get this sheet here. Not this sheet. You'll get this screen here. So that will be up here, so you can take a good look. So where those 4 red arrows are is where I made this change. I changed it to fixed values, and I changed the fixed values to grams. And I entered in my minimum protein grams for my ideal weight. Now that is what I showed you how to calculate in last week's Tuesday talk, how to get the starting protein grams. I will link last week's Tuesday talk below, as well as give the information on how to do that. So mine turn out to be 75 grams a day. It's going to be different for every person because we're all different heights and ages and whatnot. So that is mine. So 75 grams fixed value is what I put in that box on the left. I've put in 0 carbs. I mean, and there are times I end up with a carb or two because eggs have 0.6. If I have eggs, cream has some. So you know, I do sometimes end up with 1 or 2 carbs in a day, and some meats also. You know, like liver and shrimp has a little bit of carbs. And fats I put as my target, and that's my upper target. I have yet to reach it. I put it in at 200 grams. I seem to be coming in daily at around 160, 170. So you know, tomorrow I'll probably hit it because that's all I'll be eating. So we'll see if I get to that 200 grams. I hope, you know, probably higher, maybe. We'll see. Anyway, so that I thought maybe that might help some of you. I did put a link to the free version of Cronometer down below. So if you're struggling with trying to get it to show you, you know, where you are as the day progresses, then great. Oh, the other thing I love about Cronometer, and maybe the other ones do this too now, I'm not really sure, is that it syncs quite seamlessly with my Fitbit. They're under settings and devices. You can put in your Fitbit and sync it, and it keeps track of your activity, all your steps, and it kind of makes an adjustment to you know, how many calories you potentially have left for the day, which I kind of ignore. I go over whatever it recommends. I go over that regularly, and so I'm not bothered by that, but some people like to know. So there you have it. So that's that. And the last thing I want to show you is some of my meals. You know, the video would get too long if I kind of went into all the, you know, the macros and this and that. But up on the screen, you're going to see this, you know, this very same picture. All of these are minimum of 80% fat, 20% protein, or higher, or more than 80%. So a minimum of 80%. So these are some of my favorite meals, and I have these over and over again. So let me show you, or I'll tell you what they all are, because you know, you might not be able to recognize what they are from the picture. So the very top left one is beef fat trimmings. I discovered beef fat trimmings. There is nothing tastier. It is like having the ribeye, and you get to have the fattiest piece, and it's all crispy. So what I do is I cut it into chunks and air fry it for a few minutes until the outside gets a little crispy, but the inside is juicy. So this is probably 90% 90% fat and 10% protein. That's one of my favorite meals. The next one, I had chicken wings. There's 4 chicken flats there. There's 2 tablespoons butter. One is in the form of actual butter, and the other one is some butter bites. I like wings. I don't, you know, it is one of my favorite meals, but I'm trying to focus mostly on beef, but I do have wings a couple of times a month. And then when I do a package of wings, it lasts 2 or 3 days because I'm eating so many less wings. Another meal that I seem to have quite often is a can of sardines. I try to have a can of sardines at least every other day. And with that, I have a carnivore cupcake or one of those bacon cookies that I made. I'll link those videos below. The carnivore cupcake is basically meat and fat formed into a cupcake, and I keep a bag in the freezer and just take one out as I need it for a meal. There's also a tablespoon butter there. There's also actually 2 because counting the butter bites. So that's another meal. And then this on bottom left is my medium rare burgers. And I'm sorry, I don't mean any offense to anybody that I eat the medium rare. Yes, I know, you know, it's not approved by the food safety people. I've been doing it all my life, and I'm 64, still here to talk about it. If you're not comfortable with it, don't do it. I'm pretty comfortable with it. So that is 4 ounces of beef there and 2 tablespoons butter. And I try to buy the regular beef because it's higher in fat. I can't always get it. So I use the lean if I have to. Still works out for the day if I add the butter to it. The next one is meat chips. I love meat chips. I have their liver pate, which I made a big batch of earlier in the week. And I spread the liver pate and the butter on those meat chips. And it is an excellent meal. It's one of my favorite meals to have. So yeah, I like that a lot. More than 80% fat, because the liver pate is also, it's just under 80% fat. It's still pretty high fat. And then with the butter, it's all good. And then this one is a breakfast that I like to have sometimes. It's beef fat trimmings, again, the same as the top left there. And I just fry them into a pan and throw in a couple of eggs, and that is more than 80% fat right there. So I just wanted to show you those meals so you get some meal ideas. I know, a lot of people are not quite sure what this looks like, and this is what it looks like for me. So those are all the sheets I wanted to show you. The other thing I wanted, in closing, I wanted to say that by the time you see this, it's going to be, I think, the 29th. And then we're, next time I see you, we're in December. So I guess I want to ask, I plan to continue this. Do you still want to see it and hear about it? December's busy for everybody. I'm happy to carry on sharing my results, sharing, pictures of meals, answering questions. But I don't want to do it if you're not interested in it, if it's not something, that applies to you, or you don't find it useful. So maybe a couple things. You could tell me if you still want to see more of this, what I'm doing. And if not, what would you like to see? Or are you just, going to be taking a break from YouTube in December because we're all getting so busy? I enjoy doing it, and so I don't mind answering questions about other things related to keto or carnivore. Please ask those anytime, and I'm happy to answer it. If anyone has anything, burning, I will do another one next week if if there's things you would like me to talk about. It's a tough time of year for people, and I find it motivating for myself to do these. And so if you find it helpful, it has to be a two-way street. If you find it helpful, I'm extremely happy to keep doing it because it also helps me stay on track. So I'm hoping that a lot of you are going to say, yes, keep going, keep showing us, but whatever the people want. So that's kind of, how I'm approaching the Tuesday talk. I will be doing, a few recipe videos. I may slow down as it gets closer to Christmas. I'm working on a very festive Christmas theme charcuterie board, which I'll share with you guys. And probably, okay, there's at least 3 or 4 days that I've kind of earmarked for December where I have to go to a restaurant or a party or a family dinner. And on those days, or during that one meal at least, I'm not worrying about staying 80-20. I'm just going to be completely transparent about that. How I got through Canadian Thanksgiving, which was back in early October, was by the same strategy. I will do what I need to do all these different days, but on this day, which last month was Canadian Thanksgiving, my commitment was to stay keto. And so I had some vegetables. I had a keto dessert. I focused on meat. And the next day I woke up, I didn't have a sugar hangover. I had zero guilt. And I was like, okay, I get to just carry on now. And I carried on with my main plan. So that's my strategy for December, because I've made those promises to myself, you know, in days past, where I'm going to be 100% on, you know, I'm going to make it through Christmas dinner 100%, you know, perfect. And for me, 100% perfect would be following the 80-20, but I know that's not realistic for a family dinner or a restaurant dinner. It's just not for me, and it's not an option for me to choose not to go. I, you know, want to be with these people. So, you know, my commitment is simply to stay keto, and that's my big cheat, keto. There are people out there who will say that I'm wrong in this, but it works for me. And that is the most important thing. If that doesn't work for you, you get your own strategy, figure it out, because we know what can happen. You know, you have that day, you eat all the food, you eat all the sugary carbs, thinking the next day that you're going to be fine, until you get there and you're not. And 3-4 months later, you come back ready to start again, but you've gained, you know, 20 or 30 pounds. That hasn't happened to me in a long time, because I have learned what my limitations are, I've learned what my boundaries are, and I've learned to work those perceived treats, or whatever they are, into these important days with zero guilt. And I honestly think that there's 2 factors that happen. You let the sugar in, that can cause a response, an addictive response in many people. You let the sugar in, and it can cause huge guilt and remorse in many people. And those 2 things together can work against you to give you months of agony afterwards. And so for me, it has worked for me to wake up the next day with zero guilt. And if I feel a little wonky because I've had some, you know, keto sweetener or a keto dessert, I'm still able to overcome it because my mental health around it is good. I have no guilt. So I've gotten to that place. It's taken me a lot of years to get to that place. And it's not something I would recommend maybe for someone who's brand new. Unless you're already in that place. I just wasn't for many years. So, I mean, if, you know, if there's any advice, I guess that's me offering my unsolicited advice, and it may work for some of you and it may not. You'll have to figure that out for yourself. So I think I've gone on long enough, and I will see you guys next week, and just not sure what that is going to look like at this point until I hear some responses from you all. And I hope you guys have a great week, and we'll see you in the next video. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.